Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Darwinian Delusions. I'm just doing a live stream and I'm trying to get into contact. Just give me a second. So, this. Sorry, guys, just a second. Hi guys, hopefully you're all well. I was just texting Alex. I sent him the live stream link for this video. Wanted him to join. He's asking what it's for, so I just basically told him it's about your position on nihilism. So he can click on it, we can go live. Anyway, how's everyone doing? Hopefully he can join us. I literally just sent him the link now, so don't blame him if he doesn't actually join in. Firstly, guys, huge apologies. I'm not sure if you can hear, but there's actually a street party going on right now, right across the road from the office, and our windows are literally shaking. So just give me a second. Let's see what Alex is saying. I'm just trying to get him online. Okay, just a little bit. That's fine. Yep. Hopefully he can join us. So he said he can't join for that long, but that's all right. Let's get him on for as long as we can. We're just waiting for him to join. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone's all right. I'm just waiting for Alex to join the live stream so then we can basically get going. How's everyone? How's everyone's Ramadan? Hopefully everything's going well with you guys. Enlightened Being, Yahya, Muhammad Habib, Bren Omar. There we go.
Hello.
Alex.
Sabor.
Welcome.
How are you?
I can't hear you.
Strange.
I
You
can't.
hear me? Okay, 1 second.
Can you hear me? Put your thumbs up if you can hear me. Yeah, he can hear me. Okay. Thanks for coming, by the way. Last minute, I literally just WhatsApped him and he just joined. How good is your sign language?
You can't.
I guess it's not that good. Okay,
Nothing?
let me try something actually. I've got headphones on. You can't. I guess it's not that good. What about now? Let me try something actually. I've got headphones on. Okay, can you hear me now?
I'll put some headphones on as well. How's that?
Yes, I can hear you. Just give me a second. Speak again, please.
How's it going?
No. Okay, I've got a. Yeah, I can hear you now, but I'm taking out my headphones. The reason why I'm wearing headphones is just across the street. There's actually a house party going on. Not a house party, a street party, and it's very loud and it's sort of shaking the windows here. So you're going to hear some music in the background. But anyway,
that doesn't sound very lockdown friendly.
Yeah, not very actually. I was thinking about because it's kind of disturbing, but I'm not supposed to be in the office, so both of these things I guess cancel out. So anyway, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Good, good. How's the lockdown been for you?
It is what it is, you know. I've just been studying, getting on with things, getting on with university. I finally found time to make this debate review, which just went out, which I'm sure you saw. I
Yes,
hope
yes.
you saw.
Well, actually, I was watching. I couldn't watch all of it, so I sort of skipped to the nihilism part. So look, I know you haven't got long, and I literally just asked you to come online just a few minutes ago, so I do appreciate. I can't keep it for too long. So I just want to give you the platform. Like, what is your position on nihilism? How do you define nihilism? And let's just get going.
So, in reference to the video, and I see that Mohammed Hijab seems to have just uploaded a video, which I should probably watch. God knows what he's going to say about me and what he's going to quote. I can tell you now, because if he's actually interested in listening to what I think now, rather than debating my quote book, then he's welcome to do so. I used to be a moral nihilist, meaning that I used to think that moral terms were meaningless, right? Moral statements don't have truth value, that is to say. So when you say this statement like, I don't know, murder is wrong, I took the kind of A.J. Ayer route of thinking that that was an empty statement. It was a motive, essentially, to the same extent as writing the word murder and then putting an exclamation mark next to it, right? In other words, it doesn't have a truth value.
Right.
Things have changed since then. Now, what I think about morality, I mean, it's been a subtle shift and a strange one, and I'm still not entirely set on what I think about morality, and that's the other thing why I think it's the other reason why I think it's quite pointless to be trying to, when I try to criticize a moral tenet of Islam, for someone to turn around and say you're a moral nihilist, because firstly I think that's irrelevant, and secondly, like, even if I was, and secondly, you know, I'm not sold on morality. I don't know what I think, but where I'm sitting at the moment is something resembling what's called descriptivism, which is the view that moral statements are what they mean to convey as something that can ultimately be expressed as a descriptive statement. Now, all of the criticisms still remain in terms of moral statements not doing what they traditionally do, not having the same kind of prescriptive value that people like to traditionally ascribe to them. But no longer do I think that the statements are actually meaningless, right? That's moral nihilism. Instead, I think they just mean something else. I've become something of a descriptivist. So the thing that I want to say is that all of the criticisms that someone like yourself would levy against me, and perhaps even Mohammed Hijab would do in a debate, would still perhaps be accurate, but they'd have to be adjusted slightly. Like, you can still make a statement. You can still say something like, well, if morality is all descriptive, then where's the prescriptive function? How can you say that something, you know, you ought to do something or ought not do something? And that's a discussion that can be had, but it needs to be had under the understanding that I don't think moral terms are meaningless. I think they're descriptive.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, I mean, it's a strange moral idea, descriptivism. So I'm sure that anybody listening, if this is the first time they've heard me talk about it, especially, they might not have a clue what I'm even going on about. But I'm usually happy to answer questions if people tweet at me or something and they ask me in good faith and they just say, look, man, I'm confused about this part of your moral theory. How can you say this or how can you say that? Then I'll usually answer them if I see it. The one thing I would add is that I've seen I was going to ask about a potential response from Ira or Mohammed Hijab. I know that they're an organization you work with. I don't know if you kind of work for them or if you're something in terms of the organization, but
yeah.
I was originally asking for permission to upload the original debate. And I also wondered, I'd like to ask this to Mohammed Hijab, but I wondered if you might know a thing or two about this, about the questions I raised in the video, specifically pertaining to the edited footage, the controlling of comments, and the misquoting, if you know anything about that.
Yeah, so I'll first clarify how the footage went down and what actually happened. So if you remember, we were liaising on WhatsApp afterwards.
Yeah.
The footage is owned by Salam, who Mohammed Hijab used to work for, right? And the CEO of Salam, I got your email, and then he sent you an email with 4 conditions, right?
That's right.
So the way that the footage worked is that Salam filmed it, and we helped them film it because we're also a sister sort of organization. Now, what happened was they're the ones who actually ultimately own the rights. So if you remember on the day that we spoke, I think you asked me, or Muhammad Hijab asked you to ask me, and then I said to you, look, I'll get back to you on this.
That's
so
right.
I asked the Salam guys. They basically said, look, we're going to have a team meeting and then we'll let you guys know. So then they asked for your email. I gave your email and then they emailed you directly. So the footage is not actually owned by IERA. If you remember with the debate that we had, one of our camera guys, his rear end happened to block one of your camera angles. And then, we said to you, look, we'll give you the footage that we botched up on your end. And from that perspective, we were trying to be as transparent as possible. But whatever conditions he's put on through Salam or whatever, that's just something you have to take up with him, right? That's not something.
Well, I would like to take it up with him if he'll respond. I mean, my problem, I have no quarrel with the idea of the footage belonging to Salam, belonging to IERA. I mean, fine by me. They filmed it. I was under the impression beforehand that I'd have access to the footage in full, but that was probably my fault. I didn't. That was just standard practice in every other debate that I've ever done. But I understand this is a professional organization. Fine, no problem. And that's why I didn't say anything. And when they first emailed me, I said in the email response, this sounds perfectly reasonable. What I didn't realize at the time is that the footage had been edited and that the comments had been controlled. The thing that got on my wick was that I was told in the conditions that I'm not allowed to manipulate the comments and I'm not allowed to edit the footage. And by editing, they meant even just clipping it. I'm not even allowed to take a clip from the debate and upload it. And yet not only were they clipping it, they edited the footage. Mohammed Hijab even takes a clip from our debate, Sabor, and uploads it, atheist rattled by simple question. He wasn't in that debate. Now look, I had a video released.
I get why you're upset, and you were in the video.
I can't say I'm upset. I can only say that I'm frustrated, I suppose, at the fact that I had a release consent form in my bag when we debated. I was going to get you to sign the video release, but you filmed your version, I filmed my version, and I didn't sign anything for you. So I thought, I'm not going to ask you to sign anything for me. Let's keep it on those terms. Now, had I known that that footage was going to be clipped and uploaded to a channel of a person who had nothing to do with the debate, then I would have asked in the terms that either you don't get to do that or we both get to do that. And I should get to do that on the, if I can't take a clip from my debate with Mohammed Hijab that he was in and I was in, and I can't take a clip from that, but he can take a clip from a debate that he wasn't even a part of and upload it with a clickbait title, then yeah, I've got some troubles, which is now why I'm asking IERA to just give me permission to use the footage in the same way they do.
There's a small missing link in that. I just want to clarify. Salam's contract with him basically came to an end, and then he started working for IERA a few months ago. So if you notice, if you go to his YouTube channel, he's actually fundraising for IERA Africa, and he's doing various things now. So look, I just wanted to bring you on to speak about moral nihilism. I mean, in regards to us owning the footage, we don't own the footage as IERA. So, and you even, somebody WhatsApped me a message. I think it's Saqib who was liaising with you earlier. You sent a message directly to IERA asking for the footage, and I was going to reply back basically saying what I'm saying now, which is it's owned by Salam. So let's just go back to the point about moral nihilism, because that's what I really wanted to talk about. The rest of the things you can bring up in Mohammed Hijab.
Yeah, and I've just seen he's changed the title of his video to is atheist cosmic racist. So he's accusing me of racism now. I dread to think what he's saying about me on this video. This is the thing I'm trying to avoid with all of this. I don't see why we have to have this kind of back and forth. Just make a video without that kind of, I don't understand it. But look, yeah, those are my views. I mean, the point of the video was threefold. It was partly to show how, you know, the footage had been manipulated in a way that is just absolutely undeniable. I mean, would you agree, for instance, and you know, it wasn't, as you say, it's not even your organization who owns the footage. Would you agree that to edit a closing statement and upload it pretending as though that footage was filmed in the original thing is inexcusably bad conduct when it comes to a debate?
I would love to give my judgment, and in fact, if he jumps on this live, maybe we can just have it all out with you know what happened with the footage. But I just wanted to bring you on for moral nihilism. I mean, sure, I don't want to say. I mean, just before I brought you on board, Mohammed Hijab released that video, and I didn't even watch it. So I don't want to say, okay, he said this, or what happened here, what happened there. I'd rather just stick to the moral nihilism thing. So, is that all? Is that your actual position? What you just described is just purely.
Yeah, I mean, there's further explication to be made there. If you want a full explication, I'm talking to the people listening here. Then. There's a video on my channel called "The Good Delusion," which is which I know you saw, and you'll understand that that's not or hopefully understand that that's not moral nihilism. I know that you didn't accuse me, I don't think, of moral nihilism in our debate. I think you understood that it's not.
Before I give my position, because I wanted you to make sure your position's fully on the table. So is your position that of non-cognitivism?
No, not anyway. That's what I'm saying it used to be. So A.J. Ayer's view is non-cognitivism, which is what my view used to be. Non-cognitivism meaning non-cognitive, right? The words literally have no meaning. Now, you can be a subjectivist or even a relativist, right? Because these two get confused as well. People say that if you're a subjectivist, it means you're a relativist. They're different things.
I'm aware of those distinctions. That's fine, but
what that means is that when I say when I say I'm not a non-cognitivist anymore, I could still not believe in objective morality, for instance. I could be a moral subjectivist, even though I'm not a moral nihilist or a non-cognitivist anymore. These are important distinctions. And when those distinctions fail to be recognized, I think it leads to the kind of confusion that we saw in Mohammed Hijab's accusations against me.
Okay. So using your position, do you think, like, for example, if you were to make a certain moral statement, right? Do you think that that is something which is binding upon someone else?
Well, it depends what you mean by binding. I mean, I think it's true of that person. Because again, remember when I say that I talk about morality, I'm using descriptivism, which descriptive as opposed to prescriptive, which means that I'm describing a state of affairs, which is true of the person I'm talking about. That's what I mean. So the way that people want to criticize people like myself is to say something like, look, your morality is good for you, but it might not be good for another person. Like it can kind of, it's not universal, right? What if someone just disagrees with you? My point is that I'm describing things about the universe. It's a descriptive statement that applies universally. So it applies to that person just as it applies to me.
It applies from your first person perspective. It's not something true from a ontological perspective for everybody.
Well, it applies from my perspective in the same way that I could make an observation about any other kind of descriptive fact. Like I could make an observation that books fall to the ground when I drop them, and from that observation I derive that that happens no matter who drops the book. Like sure, that's from my first person perspective of my observation.
But that's very different, Alex, because that's something which is true or false. The way the book drops, the velocity it drops at, whatever it is. But clearly, and this is where actually I did disagree with you in the debate, because I do believe atheism necessarily leads to moral nihilism. And the way I define moral nihilism is, I think, the standard way of defining it, which is that nothing is morally right or wrong, right? And that's why, I mean, I brought up the argument of Alex Rosenberg. I think is very convincing. And I think the way you've defined moral nihilism is perhaps different to me. And I want to know what your definition is, and whether that's the right definition.
Well, you say moral nihilism is that nothing is right or wrong. We have to be careful what we mean by that, because of course that's correct. But that kind of implies that, so people want to say something like, well, that means that murder is not wrong. Yes, that's true, but it's not like right or permissible for that reason, right? That the opposite of wrong is not permissible, right? So when you ask me in the debate, you asked me in the debate, this is the clip that Mohammed Hijab took, that I got rattled by apparently, when you said, is rape objectively wrong? And the reason I hesitated was because it depends on what resolution of thought you're talking about. I don't think that it's objectively wrong in the sense that you talk about objective morality. So the answer would be no.
I do get that, Alex. Look, we're not talking about whether it's prescribed or it's prohibited. This is again, Alex Rosenberg makes this huge distinction and goes over this thoroughly in his book, An Atheist Guide to Reality. I understand that totally. That's not something, but I think that's irrelevant to the point at hand, which is essentially that if you do not believe in morals being right or wrong objectively, you are a moral nihilist. So I want to know what definition of moral nihilism you're using, because the standard definition is nothing is right or wrong, and according to that, you are a moral nihilist. And I know previously when you said that you were sort of flirting with moral nihilism, and then later on you sort of backtracked a little bit from that. The issue with moral nihilism, I think we can both agree, whether you agree to being a moral nihilist or not, you can say, I believe I'm not a moral nihilist, but you need more than hand waving. You need to justify it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I can understand why this confusion.
I want to agree with both of us before we carry on, which is, if you are a moral nihilist, then any issue that you may even have morally, or even truth being valuable, right? Because truth being essentially valuable is, someone can say, I believe in falsehood, I don't believe in truth, right? I just want to follow falsehood. And we'll say to the person, well, truth is good. So even following truth is essentially a moral imperative, right? So
no, I have to disagree with that, because again, truth is something descriptive. So this is something that actually my friend Stephen Woodford is currently having this kind of argument with Stefan Molyneux, because Stefan Molyneux says that if somebody says that something is true, they're assuming that truth is good, or truth is preferable, or truth is wanted in some way, which is what you're saying. But like, that's not the case. These are separable. I can say that something is true. It might not be preferable that it's true. For instance, whatever the nuclear codes are, whatever the nuclear launch codes are, is a true fact. I don't think that that it's like preferable to have that truth known, right? So just by saying it's a true fact, I'm not saying that truth is somehow better or preferred or anything like that. I'm just saying a descriptive fact that something.
But that again would depend on your moral ideas. So if you happen to be a utilitarian and you're a Kantian, you're going to look at that question differently. If you're a Kantian, you're going to say, well, why are you denying me moral agency, right? I want to be able to have access to all the information. So look, there's a lot of presumptions here. Like, look, let's start off on this point. If you are a moral nihilist, right, that would have implications, and
absolutely
part of those implications are your moral judgments on anything at best are going to be just descriptive, and they're not going to be something binding. And I think this is the, the whole sort of debate that we're having. And I don't want to turn. I mean, my intention was not to have a debate with you, and I don't want to do that. But it's all about clarity. So I want to know, what definition of moral nihilism are you using? Because I'm really like confused, and I'm not just saying this. Right? I am actually confused. Like, what is your definition of moral nihilism?
I think I would agree with you that moral nihilism, or I could agree with you even, that moral nihilism is just the view that nothing is right or wrong, as long as we understand what we mean by that. Now, bear in mind that moral descriptivism keeps the framework of rightness and wrongness. It's just the rightness and wrongness lies in the person rather than the action, right? And you'll know this if you saw my Good Delusion. It's so long to explain, but you'll have seen the explanation that I still say that people are right or wrong. I don't say that actions are right or wrong. I say that people are right or wrong. So I still keep the terminology of right or wrong and the meaning of right or wrong. So that's why I wouldn't call myself a moral nihilist. But the thing is, like, look, I think it's worthwhile pointing out that I don't consider myself a moral nihilist anymore. But let's just say, for example, that I'm wrong about this, and I am a moral nihilist.
But do you see the problem with what I'm trying to highlight, which is essentially that if you have an argument, which I think is very strong, like Alex Rosenberg's argument, in which I gave you the dilemma. So is something good, therefore it's selected, or was it selected because it's good? And then you went with, I believe that it's good because it was selected, right? The thing is, when this sort of paradox is given, and I raised this in my previous video, when this sort of paradox is given, and I'm assuming this is the first time you heard of Alex Rosenberg's paradox when I brought it up in the debate, and you just went with one example, one of the roots. I don't mean to be crude here, but it can look a bit naive. That,
of course, yeah, no, yeah, this wasn't
paradox, and you just go off with one.
This wasn't the first time I've come across this. As you say, it's an adaptation of the Euthyphro dilemma. And
what I meant was Alex Rosenberg's version.
Yeah, I hadn't heard Alex Rosenberg say it, but I've certainly come across this thought before. And this is what, like, again, in the Good Delusion, this is why I would just tell people to watch this. I explained the link between the capacities that we evolved, the faculties that we evolved, and their connection to kind of rightness or wrongness. Because again, rightness or wrongness are descriptive here. The objection you raised when I gave this answer was essentially, well, look, if we evolved differently, then morality would be different. And the answer is simply yes. That's the case on the descriptivist view. Now, look, you can have problems with that. You can say that makes morality arbitrary, in the same way that the answer to the original Euthyphro dilemma, a lot of people say, makes morality arbitrary, right? Fine, we can have that discussion. But the fact of the matter is that with all of these qualifications, I would still say that doesn't make me a moral nihilist. It just makes me hold to a moral view that you see as problematic. But remember as well, and this is the important thing that I want to point out.
Look, I don't want to get past this point, because I think this is the essential problem here. I think you are a moral nihilist, and the only reason you can't be a moral nihilist is simply by saying, I believe I'm not a moral nihilist. I don't believe you're justified right now to say that I am a moral nihilist. Because look, in your God delusion, sorry, the good delusion, the way you broke it down, and I thought it was quite clever. You started off with desire. We can't desire anything except pleasure, and then you went into free will, and then this is the only possible conclusion. But do you see why people like me have a huge problem with that? Because I just don't see the link.
Yeah, I absolutely do see that problem, which is why I tried to explain in the good delusion and also in the audience Q&A following that.
And a lot of the audience weren't buying it either. Let's be fair.
No. Oh yeah, absolutely not. No, as I say, this is a minority view, but this is the other point about it, is that like
it might be minority because it's wrong.
Maybe, sure, but Islam was a minority once, and that grew quite successfully.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I believe, as you said yourself, Sabor, truth is not a democracy.
There we go. You agree on that point.
Look, I think the point to raise is that in the original debate with Muhammad Hijab, where this was brought up, and the reason that I suppose we're having this discussion now, and the reason Muhammad's made this bizarrely titled video that I can't wait to watch, is because the reason it was brought up in the first place is because I made a criticism of Islamic morality, and Muhammad Hijab turns around and says, well, how can you say anything's wrong because you're a moral nihilist? Now, I'm just willing to grant this for the sake of argument. Fine, let's just say I'm a moral nihilist, right? That's besides the point. The point I made was that atheists can criticize John Locke, right? Like they're capable of doing it, right, without contradicting themselves. Whereas Muslims can't contradict the Sunnah of the Prophet. They can't say that something that was in there was wrong, right? And that was the point I was trying to make. Now, it's a simple point that I was just trying to get across. It doesn't even really lead anywhere. I was just trying to get people to recognize, hey, look, there's an asymmetry here.
Sure.
And
I don't disagree with that.
And this is the thing. This isn't a criticism of Islam. Like Muslims will agree that we believe that the Sunnah of the Prophet is a moral guide. I think Muhammad Hijab just wouldn't let me even get that point out because he wanted to accuse me of moral nihilism instead. And it's like the reason I'm saying this is because even if you're totally right about this, even if I am a moral nihilist, it's got absolutely like nothing to do with the argument I was making when Muhammad Hijab first raised it.
Okay, but so I agree with part of what you said, not the other part. So I agree with the part that there's an asymmetry. I don't disagree there. But the part where I disagree is that if you are a moral nihilist, then essentially all of your moral sort of qualms or problems would be irrelevant. I mean, we would just have a loud theater of the absurd, right? I mean, there would be nothing binding about it, nothing true about it. So I hope you do appreciate that his point that if you are a moral nihilist, then all of your points, basically the moral points, are irrelevant. I hope you do appreciate that at least follows.
Yes, I understand that he would be saying that, like, I can't make particular moral statements. Sure.
No, not that you can't make them, but that basically they don't.
That they're meaningless. Yeah, that they don't have any. Like, again, yeah, this is fine, and this is something that I admit now and would have admitted at the time. Yeah. But as I point out in my video response, this is a two-quad fallacy. This is not how you do debates.
So, do you want to watch the Muhammad Hijab debate video together? I can actually share the screen right now.
What, the original Muhammad Hijab debate?
No, I mean the racist one, since you mentioned it.
Oh, sure, yeah, why not? Yeah. Okay.
Look, Alex, look, I said this about you before. I don't know if you saw, but I did say, look, you're more like Stephen Law. I said this to you when I met you as well. This is why I'm asking you to move away from New Atheists, because I think you're better than that. And also, look, at the end of the day, you have to understand also the New Atheist movement. Half of it's been sort of hijacked by the likes of Peter, Jordan Peterson and all the rest. So, I mean, it's better to have a nuanced sort of discussion than the sort of New Atheist sort of imperial attack on Islam, right?
Plenty to say there, but yeah, I can at least I can extract the compliment from that and say thank you. But look, I don't have too long, but if you want to watch this video, I think
sure. I mean, okay. But I did want to mention, if you remember when we were before the debate, we were walking around, I did bring up the Iraq war and so you made a great video, the sophistry of Christopher Hitchens. I agree with that, but you need to make a video also about his position on the Iraq war, because a lot of human rights abuses happened there. Rapes, killings, radioactive weapons used on civilians.
I think what you find is that the majority probably followers of Hitchens would completely agree with you. That's the reason I left it out, because I wanted to take points that people popularly agreed with rather than kind of popularly didn't agree with, but you know, too many people already did. Just give me.
Sure.
It's fine. I didn't tell anybody that I'm doing this, and I really don't have long, but I do want to watch this video if you want to stick it on.
Sorry, by the way, Alex is going to go, and I asked him 10 minutes max, and I've had 30 minutes, so I'm actually very grateful to him. I mean, you can go now, and you can like if you need to go now, no problem.
It's fine. I can at least watch this.
Sure.
Watch this video before going.
How long is it, by the way?
It's like 3 minutes or something.
Okay.
God knows what he's going to say.
Okay. Here we are. Okay. Can you see?
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to hear.
Let me know if you can hear it. Right.
Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? Guys, about a year ago, as you guys know, I did a debate with Alex, this atheist who's got a channel which is has content which is inflammatory and attack.
I can't hear. You've muted yourself.
Anyway,
I have to be unmuted. What did he say? I didn't hear what he said. He said something inflammatory.
That age with him, we had that because.
Sorry, shall I play?
Wait, if you mute yourself, then I can't hear the video.
Oh, okay. I was trying to mute myself because of the house party. How long?
I can't hear it. It's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? Guys, about a year ago, as you guys know, I did a debate with Alex, this atheist who's got a channel which is has content which is inflammatory and attacks Muslims and Islam and the Prophet of Islam and stuff like that.
You pause there?
Anyway, a lot of people were asking, why were you so aggressive in that debate with him?
Yep.
I have never attacked Muslims. That's not something that I do. That's not something that I've done. That's something that we, as my colleagues in the atheist community, are very careful to press every single time we talk about Islam. That bigotry against Muslims is real. It needs to be stopped and is inexcusable. We talk about Islam, and I'm not. He also said something like that I'm degrading or inflammatory about the Prophet. I just say things that the scholarly consensus is true about the Prophet, such as that he married Aisha at 6 years old, and I give a kind of moral analysis of that. It's not inflammatory to say a fact about the sunnah of the Prophet.
Yeah. I think it's not just that, Alex. It's a few other things. Like, for example, you were on a panel with a few people, and one of the people on the panel, he described Islam like a cancer, right? And about finishing Islam. And also, like, one of your videos, you called Muslim women in niqabs women in bags. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the Prophet, peace be upon him, marrying Aisha radiallahu anha at the age of a young age of 6, and then the actual marriage at 9. There's a whole discussion about this. I mean, and that's, if you want to have an academic discussion, that's fair enough. But having videos like, women in bags, and also like sitting on a panel where people are saying these sorts of things. I mean, I can agree with hijab that, this can be seen as basically pandering to people who hold these types of nefarious views.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be. You're talking about Armin Navabi there, who describes Islam as a cancer or whatever, which is something, I don't agree with. As you say, I try to take a more scholarly approach to these things. But again, even if Armin Navabi describes Islam as cancerous, I think that's a poor choice of words. But again, he's attacking Islam rather than Muslims, and that may be unjustifiable. You may think that's unjustifiable, but it's again just incorrect of Muhammad Hijab to accuse us of that. But I want to get through the rest of the video, so say what you have to say, and that's.
I have a few more comments, but still we'll watch it.
Then why were you had that edge with him? You had that because I've had debates with people like Edward Tabash, for example, where I was quite moderate. Yeah, I was assertive and I was confident as my usual self, but I wasn't in this sense like that abrasive, that aggressive. So why is it that you use that kind of attitude with Alex? And my simple answer is because I've reviewed some of his content and I saw him as a hostile person to Islam and Muslims. That's my final answer on the issue. And I actually think, I don't know.
Can we stop there?
Yeah.
The challenge that I posed to Muhammad Hijab was to explain why he edited footage, why he dishonestly quoted me, why he misquoted me, and why he controlled the comments, not to explain his decorum. I've got absolutely no problem with him being, like, attacking or being fierce or whatever it may be, like, fine, no problem. I want answers to my questions, which I would be surprised if he actually attempted to answer in this video.
Okay, I'll carry on playing.
To say, and I want to ask you guys whether this person is actually a racist. Okay, yeah, I don't know whether he's a racist or not. So, and the reason why I came to the conclusion that this guy might actually even be a racist, you know, a colonial imperialistic type of racist, is because of the following clip. Now, I want Somali people, because he's talking about Somalis here, and obviously he's using them as an example, but look how he speaks. Look at the demeaning language. You know, just listen to this and answer me one question. Do you, I'm not going to make my mind up on it. I want you to make your mind up
Can
on
we pause before he plays it?
Maybe.
Yep.
Just before he plays the clip, firstly, I think this may be a clip from my discussion with Rationality Rule Stephen Woodford in my back garden. If it is, then I know exactly what's gone wrong here. I would just say, look, he's made a video here saying, is atheist cosmic racist? And he says, well, look, I'm not accusing him of being racist. I don't know. It's an open question. Like sure, like, look, I don't know anything about Muhammad hijab, but I'm not going to make a video just kind of saying, is Muhammad hijab, insert keyword, and then justify that by saying, well, I don't know the answer to this question, but here are some suggestions. It's like, if you're going to use a word like that in a title and attach it to my name, then you better have a bit more than just shots in the dark here. But I need to hear what he's actually talking about before I can see if he's got any kind of justification in his criticisms.
Sure. Shall I play?
But also, I mean, Sabul, like, you also reviewed my footage before we had a debate. Do you think that I'm a colonialist racist?
Well, personally, I already mentioned this to you, and I said this publicly, that you are closer to Stephen Law. However, at the same time, I did mention to you, you need to distance yourself from New Atheists, because I can understand why anybody associated with New Atheists, like you, for example, you made a video with Richard Dawkins, they'll automatically be guilty by association. I mean, I see Richard Dawkins like a bigot. He sees Islam as the same as Nazism. And people like Dawkins and Sam Harris, who calls for a preemptive strike on the Muslim world using nuclear weapons. So I don't think you are that kind. That's why I asked you before the debate, during the debate, and after the debate, and this is on Twitter, I said, Cosmic Skeptic is way more intellectually honest and better than the likes of Dilhunty, Sam Harris, and Dawkins. But do you see why associating with New Atheism is going to automatically bring this kind of baggage?
Well, that's guilt by association. I mean, we have a term for that as to why that's a bad idea. I mean, like, look, for instance, I know people who subscribe to Sam Harris's moral worldview, right? They think that he's right about morality. Yeah. Sam Harris wrote a pretty horrible essay about profiling. He defended racial profiling in an essay on his website, and it was horrendous.
And a nuclear attack on Makkah.
Yeah, now, but I'm not going to, if somebody engaged with Sam Harris and said they agreed with his moral worldview or something, I'm not going to say that they are also in favor of racial profiling, or they should feel guilty because they're engaging with someone who's engaged in racial profiling.
That's where I disagree.
They're separable issues.
That's where I disagree with you, Cosmic. Because look, I'm Muslim. What if I said to you, I'm quite interested in the philosophy of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I would never say that.
But look, if you did,
for a second, but you can see why because look, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi or Bin Laden or any of these terrorists, Christopher Hitchens is a far bigger terrorist than these guys. I mean, the Iraq War led to the death of 1 million people, right? It led to the death of 1 million people, and he was defending the attacks that were actually happening. You saw the debate with George Galloway. So look, I don't believe that you can get off that easily by saying, well, I agree with them on some parts, so I can share stage with them. If Armin Nawabi is saying Islam is a cancer and we need to put an end to Islam, and you're sharing stage with him, then rightfully I should ask you not to do that, which I've asked before.
There are a few things to note. Firstly, like that we've got to be careful about how we throw around the word terrorist here. The second thing to note is that if you said, for instance, that you agree with the leader of ISIS, that
I don't.
I know you don't, but if you did, if you said something like, I agree with him that God exists, or something like that, which you do agree with him on that point at least. Like, it might be a strange thing to say because there are plenty of other people you could choose. But like, I would not hold you to the rest of that person's views. Now, it would be a strange thing to do and probably be a bad PR move. But intellectually speaking, I can't hold you to somebody else's view because you agree with them on something else that they've said. That's not how it works.
Okay, so Alex, like, you know, what if I walk into a synagogue, right, and I just happen to say, by the way, I agree with Hitler's idea on animal rights or something, right? And supposedly, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, he had some very interesting views on this, right, which were more advanced than some of us today from the
Well,
perspective.
that's a lot to do with Goebbels' propaganda.
Yeah.
Hitler actually wasn't a vegetarian, which is quite
Okay.
interesting. But I see where you're going. Look, this is different because, of course,
No,
context is the most important thing here, right? Like, you shouldn't walk into a synagogue and start talking about Hitler. But if you walk into an intellectual discussion,
yeah.
talking about a philosophical issue that someone held, then yes, you can bring them up. Don't bring it up out of nowhere. Like, I wouldn't walk into a mosque, for instance, and say, hey, I agree with Armin Navabi on this, but like, I wouldn't do that. It would be pointless. I completely agree with you. But you cannot. It's an intellectually bad move
You
to
see
try and.
Muslims see Christopher Hitchens worse than Bin Laden and worse than Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi because he led to the death of 1 million Iraqis.
I can understand why they think that.
And it's a fact. He was a chief propagator of the Iraq War, and you yourself, you called Christopher Hitchens your maker, right? You've watched all of his videos. You're his big fan. I can see beyond the nuance, and I can say, you know what, Alex is not a racist. Alex is not an imperialist. Alex should not be close to new atheism, which I've asked you before. But you can't blame Muhammad Hijab for making those associations when you do describe these people in a very good light, which you should.
I can make that assertion because Muhammad Hijab is accusing me of being a racist and an imperialist because I agree with some people on unrelated views who also happen to harbor racist or imperialist views, right? That simply doesn't follow. And it's insulting and it's offensive and it's Alex, beyond correct decorum. Like, this is ridiculous.
Look, you know enough philosophy to understand it doesn't follow necessarily, but it can follow. Right? If you happen to share stage with somebody who calls Islam a cancer, calls for the end of Islam, right? And you also happen, and I've seen enough of your stuff to understand that.
Well, support. If you've seen it, then what did I say to Armin after he said that? Do you remember?
Well, you sort of disagreed with him lightly.
I said, and you can we can link the clip if you like, or get it up if you like. I mean, again, I am literally going to have to go in a minute. But what I do is I say, Armin, we had a discussion the other day. And I swear you were arguing the exact reverse. You're being inconsistent. This is I berated him for his views, right? Sharing a platform with someone is an opportunity to engage with them. It's not an opportunity to just.
But do you believe people like that we should share platform with them?
Well,
I mean, seriously, somebody's calling for the end of Islam at the same time that there's attacks on Muslims in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Syria, in Xinjiang, in China. I mean, do you think that's like a very wise thing to do? Look, I'm not saying you're a racist, you're an imperialist, but you're being a bit naive with these things, Alex. Like,
no,
people are going to make association, aren't they?
Support. Like, I agree that Armin's wording is intentionally provocative, and I wouldn't want to use it myself. But look, philosophically speaking, for example, as a Muslim, you want to see the end of atheism because you want people to convert to Islam because you believe it's the truth and it's going to lead to their salvation.
I would not say if, for example, there was a Muslim state which took over an atheist state. China is the reverse, and who were brainwashing atheists to become Muslim. And like, as you probably know, I'm a big Uyghur rights activist, and I just had a live concentration camp survivor 2 days ago. And the torture and the rape and the sort of things that happen in these camps, and these atheists, they force people to say they don't believe in God anymore. Now, if the world was full of Muslims who were oppressing atheists, I would never say I want atheism to end because
there is. I mean, there are places where atheists are oppressed by Muslim governments. You know this, of course. But hold on, because you just said a second ago like, if there were a state that were doing this, it's like, well, there is, right? So that's the situation we're in. So let's answer the question.
Alex, you're saying that the sort of thing, like the example I gave you of China, where we have a large state doing this, right? And previously, I've also brought on guests on my show that during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, 2 million people died. We're talking about large numbers and it being an overall thing. Atheists around the world are not under threat the way that Muslims are in the world under threat. They are just like Buddhists and Jews and other people, but not to the same extent. The Muslim genocide that's happening.
I can agree.
It's happening here.
We're not disagreeing here. Atheists are oppressed in some countries in some ways, and Muslims are oppressed in other countries in other ways, perhaps more so, right? But again, besides the point, what I'm saying is this: philosophically speaking, and again, if we're having a philosophical discussion, then we need to just be bland about what we mean here, right? If you think that it would be beneficial to the world for everybody to convert to Islam, then you think it would be beneficial to the world for atheism to disappear. But the thing is, well, that's fine. That's absolutely fine, right? Because you think it's a false belief that should be rid from the world because it's false, right? What you're not saying is that you're going to rid atheists or that you're going to force people to convert. You're just saying it would be a good thing if it went away.
Alex, you know and understand that the way it was conveyed by Armin, and the very reason you disagreed with him, is with what's going on around the world, that's not the right way to talk. Right?
Exactly. So I told him. I told him I disagreed with what he was saying. But I don't think that he's kind of philosophically in error. But I think that what he said was wrong. Right? As I say, I think it was intentionally provocative. Yes. I think it's a poor way to conduct yourself. And I criticized him for it. So what more do you want me to do? Do you want me to lie and say that like the philosophical underlyings are somehow flawed? Because they're not. Like the only thing that I can do, to be honest, is to say, so Armin, like I wouldn't say that if I were you. But you're entitled to your opinion.
Okay, so look, put it this way. I've said myself that I don't consider you to be like that. However, at the same time, I do sympathize that if somebody was to make the guilty by association sort of, if they were to go down that route where you share platform with somebody who compares the Quran to Mein Kampf, although he's never read it, and who attacks Muslims regularly, who, in fact, some academics have spoken about how new atheism is a type of imperialism, a new type of justification for the Western world in its wars in the Muslim life, which I'm sure you're aware of too, then you can see why Muslims would be making these sorts of associations like hijab has done with you. So I do sympathize with
that doesn't stop them from being wrong. I can see why they're doing it, but they're wrong to do so, right? I can see why somebody would see me, for instance. So for example, the majority of criticisms of the Prophet Muhammad that you see are from genuine anti-Muslim bigots, right? The vast majority. If you go on social media or something and you look at people posting cartoons of the Prophet, you look at people degrading the Prophet and things like this. The majority of the people doing that, I don't know if it's the majority, but a lot of people doing that are people who are actually anti-Muslim bigots, and they're doing it for that reason, right? Now, so I would understand, this is the distinction we should make.
Yeah.
When I criticize the Prophet, I can understand why somebody might assume that I'm an Islamophobe, right? I can understand why they think that, but they're wrong. They're incorrect, even if I can understand why they think that. In the same way, Muhammad Hijab can think and say what he likes about me, doesn't make him any more right. He's wrong about it.
But look, Alex, you know, you in your video, you said about clickbaiting and we need to get past this. I mean, the video that you made about Muslim women, right, wearing niqab, and my mom used to wear niqab as well.
Yes.
When you say a note to women in bags,
yes,
I'm sure there's a million better ways of doing that, Alex.
Yeah, and Sabor, I agree with you, which is why the video title was changed.
Okay,
which I can understand you wouldn't know that happened, but I agree with you. When I started making YouTube videos, yeah, you do get kind of, because you start listening to a lot of people. And you agree with some of their views, and it is dangerous because of the other views they hold, and you might start to get seduced by them, and you start getting a bit kind of up in yourself. Now, I still defend someone's right to refer to a burqa as a bag if they want to, but as you say, I just recognize this is not conducive to good behavior. Like, this isn't going to help. This is going to contribute to anti-Muslim bigotry. I began to see the problem for what it was, and so I changed the video. So yeah, so I think I was wrong, and I changed accordingly.
Great thing. So look, we can both agree on some points here, which is at least that there is this association, and this to just make sure that, you know, we don't have these problems. We just openly say, like, I openly condemn ISIS, Al Qaeda, Taliban. I openly do this because people automatically make associations, and you should always do that. Now, with yourself, this is why I've recommended to you this before as well. You should make a video saying that Christopher Hitchens, yes, okay, he's got these problems philosophically, but here's why he is somebody who is just as guilty as Osama bin Laden, because Osama bin Laden led to the death of 3,000.
I can't make that video. I can't make that video.
Why?
Because the geopolitics are far more complicated than just saying Christopher Hitchens led to the death of however many hundred thousands people, right? It would be more comparable to talk about an actual military leader rather than a polemicist. I think that's absurd, because again, you're talking, this is ideological warfare, not physical warfare. The boots on the ground.
How many people did Goebbels kill? How many people did he kill? Probably none.
But again, like, Like
But
this is why we can't talk in plain terms about this. This is why I can't say something like Goebbels was better or worse than Hitler, because it's complicated. Geopolitics is complicated. What I can do is I can look at what an individual said and say whether or not I agree with it, say whether or not it was racist, say whether or not it was imperialist, say whether or not it is relevant to any of their other views. And that's what I do with someone like Hitchens. I say, look, he said a lot of things that I like, he said a lot of things I don't like. Most of the stuff he said I don't like. I think he was funny and well written, but most of his actual points were nothing burgers. They were ridiculous, right? Like, so for someone like Mohammed Hijab or someone like yourself to kind of claim that this is a justifiable inference, to see me say that, hey, you know, Christopher Hitchens really and when I said he was my maker, I meant he was my maker in terms of my literary style, something I specify. So for me to say Christopher Hitchens is my biggest inspiration in terms of the way I write and the way I speak, to derive from that somehow I'm associated with racism and imperialism is just a step too far. And I'm sure that you can see this. I'm sure that you can see this.
And I definitely can see it, which is why I did mention you need to keep away from new atheists. The only point I was making, Alex, is I can't really blame Mohammed Hijab for making those associations, because those associations, they stand out at you, especially if you share platform with the like of Richard Dawkins, without also making a sort of video or some sort of disclaimer and saying, I disagree with this man on his Islamophobic and his very derogatory terms about Muslims and Islam, right? I mean, you've never done that. And if you did do that, perhaps, you know, and I think you're better than that, which is why I've kept asking you to move away from new atheism.
Look, I appreciate this. And when it's relevant, I will say, if a view comes up in conversation or something like this, then I will always, or sometimes when it doesn't, especially when I'm talking about Islam, especially when I'm criticizing the Prophet, I'm very careful to say, look, let's not aim this at Muslims. We need to be careful to bring an end to anti-Muslim bigotry. I'd far sooner see an end to anti-Muslim bigotry than an end to Islam, right? That's far more important to me. But the thing is, like, I'm not going to, every single time I ever engage with anybody's arguments, say, like, scan their corpus and say, hey, look, did you know they also wrote this other book that said this? Peter Singer wrote a book. Peter Singer wrote a book called Should the Baby Live? About euthanizing babies, right? Now, when I have him on to talk about animal rights, because he's the forefather of the animal rights movement, I don't need to say, hi, Peter Singer, thanks for being here. But by the way, that book you wrote in the 80s that's no longer in publication, I don't agree with that. It would be silly to do, right? Yeah, but even with him, people make that association. They accuse me of associating with the euthanasia of child. You look like when you make this similar correlation, you look to me as they look to me when they say, you have Peter Singer on your podcast, you must be sympathetic to the euthanization of babies. This is what someone like Mohammed Hijab is doing. This is what someone like yourself seems to be doing right now.
Alex, look, philosophically, I agree with you that if you share a platform with somebody, if you do something like that, you cannot physically go and look at everything that they've said and they say, I disagree on this. But when you have a war criminal like Christopher Hitchens, who is a war criminal, he is somebody who directly instigated the war.
That's not what a war criminal is.
Okay, so look, this is the point.
But hold on, like, you just made an accusation against Christopher Hitchens. That's not what a war criminal is. You can't be a war criminal just by being a polemicist.
Okay, so Goebbels was a war criminal, correct?
Yes.
Christopher Hitchens, why is he not a war criminal when they both did essentially the same thing?
They did not do essentially the same thing. So, you can't seriously think that Christopher Hitchens did the same thing for the Iraq War that Joseph Goebbels did for the Holocaust. You can't seriously think that.
I'm sure you watched the debate with George Galloway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you're aware of these arguments. And as I mentioned to you when I met you before the debate as well, that I was alive and 15 years old. I was a teenager at the time of the war and I was involved in those things. Christopher Hitchens was the loudest voice in the Western world in journalism for the Iraq War. In fact, look, there's some things that perhaps you don't even know. When the Operation Phantom Fury happened in Fallujah and you had this mass killing of civilians, when some of the rebel fighters, or whatever you want to call them, George Galloway, whatever he calls them, when they escaped, Christopher Hitchens was doing on-the-ground commentary saying the Americans let too many people escape. And he also said the people fighting for secularism today, these are Christopher Hitchens' words, are the new atheists, meaning himself and the other horsemen, and the American army in Afghanistan and Iraq. These are Christopher Hitchens' words.
Yeah. And you have every right to be incredibly angry at him for saying that, but you don't have any right to accuse me of being a racist, which I know you're not doing, but nobody has a right to accuse me of being a racist because I said that I like the way he writes. Like, this is absurd.
Alex, I've said many times, Richard Dawkins is a great science writer, right? I've said this on record many, many times. But I do say, okay, he's wrong here, he's wrong here, he's wrong here. When you're dealing with a massive public figure, you don't do things like that, right? You don't just share platform with somebody with such terrible views, or even, you know, speak about Christopher Hitchens in such positive light, knowing and understanding the emotional baggage it comes with. But it's turned into a bit of a debate. I didn't really want to.
But I could say the same thing. I could say the same thing about Muhammad Hijab. I think that some of his views on homosexuality or something like that, I could find objectionable or offensive or homophobic or something like that. And I could say, I'm not going to share a platform with him. But that would be ridiculous, because the whole point of sharing a platform with someone is to engage with them.
But Alex,
that's the point. If you are only joining a panel,
when you're debating Muhammad Hijab, you're on the opposite side. Everyone knows you don't agree with him. That's a
right.
different.
I'm never, look. If the only reason that someone joins a panel is to parrot and agree with everything else everybody says, then I think it's not worth your time being there. You can assume safely that if I'm on a panel, my views are my own and nobody else's. And to make that inference, to say that they're not, in fact, you should be held to views that somebody else has expressed on a panel that you then disagreed with, and yet somehow I'm responsible for those views or sympathetic to those views, I think is just absolutely absurd.
Okay.
But look,
we'll disagree there. We'll disagree there.
I have to go.
The sun's going down, so I'm going to be breaking my fast soon. But look, I just want to say, I didn't want this to turn into a debate. That wasn't the intention. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. And for everybody watching online, I literally just text Alex right now. So him coming online and just joining the conversation, I really do appreciate that. And I think we need to do this again, and perhaps we just break down each topic, because I think
I do just need to say, and I don't usually have to say this, but just because Muhammad Hijab has done this to our last interaction, if this will count as official consent, by the way, if he is watching, that I don't give my permission for any of this to be clipped and uploaded. If you ask me, if you send me an email and say, hey, from this discussion we just had, this is live streamed, you can put the whole thing up wherever it's going and keep it there. But if someone like Muhammad Hijab or yourself wants to take a clip and upload it, I do not give my permission for that to happen unless you ask me first. If you ask me and say, hey, can we upload this clip, I'll probably let you, but I don't give my permission to just have it uploaded, and we'd have to agree on what the title is going to be, just because he's done it twice now, at least twice. And well, this looks like it's the third, and it's just it's absurd. I just wanted to get that out there. I know you haven't done that, but Muhammad Hijab does. And
I'm absolutely fine with that. And once the lockdown's over, maybe we can come to your back garden and we could do a video on this, because you know, some of these issues, look, my whole ethos is we should talk to the other side. We should talk to the other side, even though we disagree.
Yeah,
I have strong views, but we should talk.
I'm in my second year of university, and I'm doing a theology degree, and I've decided to specialize in studying Islam. So I'm currently doing a paper on Islam in the classical period, and I have to say, I'm learning so much. You know, I'm learning so much about the religion, and a lot of my views are changing. Right, a lot of the criticism that I had no longer applied; they become more nuanced, for instance. And I have to say that now, when I go into a discussion about criticizing Islam, some of the points that I used to make, I would disagree with and say were bunk and didn't have any Quranic basis. For instance, you know, I realize there's much more debate about apostasy in Islam and the regulations related to that than you would first see. Like, there seems to be a kind of contradiction between and what's actually in the Quran, where there is no and again, to answer that question of why that's the case, you have to look into how the Quran was formed, why it's now. All this is to say, you know, I'm trying my best to engage here, but Muhammad Hijab had the exact opposite effect, right? If there was one thing that could make me want to criticize Islam more, that could make me want to kind of engage with it in a combative, hostile manner even more, it's the kind of thing that Muhammad Hijab does. It's the kind of thing of coming in, misquoting me, editing footage, uploading clips, trying to embarrass me with clickbait. Like, yeah, he can do that all he likes, but he should recognize that he's having the wrong kind of effect, right? Like, I'm trying my best here to engage. I'm trying my best here to make sure that I'm right about this. And Muhammad Hijab isn't helping. And if I were you, Sabor, you're his friend, you know him, I would ask him to reconsider the titling and the ethos of the video that he's just posted, because it's not going to help. When I share this video and show to my followers that Muhammad Hijab is accusing me of being a racist, do you think that this is going to lead to more productive discourse? I'd urge you, in the same way you urge me to distance myself from new atheists, I urge you to distance yourself from Muhammad Hijab.
But I'll do something better, which is I'm going to get you all both of you on a live stream, and this time we'll have a moderated coffee shop style of discussion.
Well, look, we'll see about that, because my experiences have been so bad with the man that I don't know if I'd even want to do that. Right? I'm happy to have a back and forth with him, but I have no reason to believe that he's actually interested in having an honest conversation. None. In fact, I have every reason to believe the opposite.
So look, sometimes what it is you just have to have it out. And you know, I could see in the video that you made earlier today, and you also you know, on Twitter you also sort of making a few tweets on this. I think it's just sometimes best to sit with the person and say, okay, so why are you aggressive? Like, okay, what's the issue?
But again, yeah, like, I don't care why he's aggressive. What I want is an answer to the questions that I've been raising on Twitter and in my video. Before I even begin to engage with anything else he wants to say, he has to answer my questions first, because as in the debate that we had, he didn't answer my questions. He tried to make me answer his, right? So he's going to answer my questions before he gets any engagement from me. He's going to tell me why he edited the footage and how he justifies it. He's going to tell me why and how he controls the comments, and if he's willing to stop that. He's going to tell me if he's willing to let me use the footage in the same way he does, or take down the clips that he's taken and uploaded to his channel. And once he's answered those questions, and he has to also admit and apologize that he'd misquoted me 3 times in that debate. Once I have answers to those questions, then maybe we can have an engagement. But I just don't see them forthcoming.
So let's end on a good point, because I'm just about to break my fast. Millions of Muslims are fasting at the moment. As an atheist, what's your message to them?
Don't be like Muhammad Hijab. If you're going to engage with atheists, we're here for you. We want to have these discussions. We're willing to engage in philosophical issues. We're interested in philosophy. We're not interested in demographics. We're not interested in geopolitics. We're interested in philosophy. I love to talk about whether or not, if there is a God, it's a contradiction to think of him as a trinity, or it's better to think of him as a unity, right? These are great, interesting questions. I would say to you, look, this is a story that we're all living together. This is an argument and a debate and a discussion that's been going on for thousands of years, and we have an opportunity to be a real part of it. But we have to be honest, and we have to be open, and we can't be proud. And I see all of those things in Muhammad Hijab. So just watch your inspirations.
What actually do, look, I mean, Muhammad Hijab is a friend, and look, his justification is whatever it is. You can actually hear it, and that's why he talks to you in that way. And I told you from the beginning that I don't have that approach with you. But anyway, thank you for your message. And another point I just wanted to say is that in this month of Ramadan, it's actually the month of mercy and forgiveness. So I try not to have a debate. You know, what's really funny is that last year, exactly at this time, I got into a debate with Aaron Ra, right? Exactly about fasting as well. So it just seems to happen during Ramadan time that we start having these discussions. But I want to thank you for coming online, and I want to have you again. And I want to get past the points we disagree on and start talking about some of the points we agree on. One of the things I want to highlight to the viewers just before Alex goes is, as you guys have been watching, I made the concentration camp video with Sister Zurmat the other day, and with the other Uyghurs, I've been uploading their videos. And Alex also, I spoke to him that if we could do something on the Uyghur issue, the Xinjiang issue of the Muslims who are in concentration camps there. And that's something I definitely want to invite you again for. Because I think, you know, that's something which I think we both can agree about, that has to come to an end.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm always happy to have genuine discussions with genuine people. And I see you as a genuine and honest person, unlike Muhammad Hijab. And I will say that if it is the time of mercy and forgiveness, then I'm perfectly willing to forgive Muhammad Hijab as soon as I receive his apology.
Thank you very much, Alex, for coming onto the show. And thank you to everybody. And we will hopefully, after Ramadan, come on live to speak about the Uyghur issue. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we just